long time building and a lot of income to build this. Now, let me tell you what's coming on part 2. I talked to my IT guy right before we went on the air. Part 2, hopefully in the next 3 weeks to a month, you'll ask it a question and it is going to put out for you a text answer. Now, understand that all of this is quarantined on our servers only. This is not going to give you answers by some leftist group. No, these are all answers and information coming from our servers that are quarantined and secure. And in the next 4 weeks, Lord willing, you'll be able to ask it a question. It won't just provide you with a video. It'll provide you with a text answer. What is secular humanism? It'll give you an answer. What's cosmic humanism or the New Age movement? Give you an answer. What is the verse John 3:16 mean? Does world mean God's people? What is Calvinism? What's hyper-Calvinism? I mean, you think of it. I mean, communitarianism. What's the worldview of Alfred Kinsey, John Maynard Keynes, Margaret Sanger? What did she believe? It's going to give you the information and then tell you where it came from. It came from Brandon's book. It came from one of these TV shows by Brandon. It came from his radio. So you're going to eventually get, as you are now, video, then a text answer, and audio if it's only from my radio show. Oh, it's amazing. And this is all proprietary, folks. And you can have access to it to study. If you're not a member, you can become a member, worldviewtube.com/.
Colonel Rob Maness has a lifelong record of providing dedicated service to this nation. Having worked his way up from the enlisted ranks to full colonel, he served our country for more than 32 years. He has served as a bomber squadron commander, bomb disposal technician, Joint Chiefs of Staff operations officer, assisted the national security team with the campaign plan for the global war on terrorism. He authored the first theater nuclear war plan and served as the vice commander of America's largest airborne intelligence wing. Colonel Rob Maness is a true American hero. This is Rob Maness Live.
We're going to continue to articulate an affirmative vision to the American people of what we as Democrats will do if they give us the opportunity to lead in the majority. We're going to fight hard to lower the high cost of living, to fix our broken healthcare system, to get ICE under control, to end this reckless war of choice in the Middle East, and to focus every single day, every single week, every single month on actually making life better and more affordable for hardworking American taxpayers.
Why isn't that breaking through? The Democrats in Congress are almost as unpopular as the president right now.
Well, one of the things that I will say is breaking through is that consistently for the last 15 months, Democrats have been winning elections all across the country, up and down the ballot, including most recently in deep red states like Texas, like Louisiana, and of course a few weeks ago in Florida, particularly in Mar-a-Lago. So at the end of the day, when the American people evaluate who's going to push back against Republican extremism, who is going to actually make life better for them and focus on the issues that matter, consistently they're choosing Democrats. Now, as it relates to the parties being perceived as unfavorable across the country, we understand that dynamic because the American people want to see action. Things haven't been working out for them over the last several decades. Far too many people are struggling to survive and certainly can't thrive paycheck to paycheck in this country, which should not be happening in the wealthiest country in the history of the world. And so we're going to continue to forcefully push back against the extremism being unleashed on the American people, push back against the chaos, while at the same period of time convince every single American that it's us who are determined to do the things that are necessary, bring about the bold transformational changes necessary to support working class Americans, everyday Americans, and middle class Americans in a manner consistent with who we are when we are the best version of ourselves here in America.
Training Tuesday, and we're live on Worldview Tube and X-Spaces simulcast. So why do candidates with wildly unpopular ideas keep winning? How do left-wing ideologues turn fringe ideas into national laws? Those are the words from the book we're going to talk about today that's on the website to go buy the book. And why do they pull off victories even in communities where conservative values run deep? The answer is simple. The left organizes. For decades, radicals have pushed tactics and trainings that turn volunteers into leaders, strangers into teams, and passion into policy. The left moves as one. It's the machine dominating districts where the majority disagree. That doesn't matter. The side determined to win will beat the side that just wants to be left alone. And so Democrats have out-organized conservatives, flipped red seats, and built pipelines producing professional operatives. Meanwhile, the right has had no practical handbook anyone can pick up to counter-organize, run, and win. Until now. Pennsylvania native Cliff Maloney, the CEO of Citizens Alliance and the founder of PA Chase and designer of over 450 election-winning door-knocking campaigns around the country, is here today to discuss the new playbook. His new book with New York Times bestselling author Joshua Lysick, Run Right, a complete election playbook to win. Cliff, welcome back to the Rob Maness Show. I'm glad to have you here. Glad to see this book's finally out.
Colonel, I appreciate you having me as always. Happy to dive in on it.
Now, that guy right there, I know I let him talk, but people have to know the hard truth. And that's what you're doing in this book, Cliff, is telling the hard truth, because he sugarcoated all the bad ideas that people even that they win on in the districts where they shouldn't win, they win anyway. And it's all about organization, isn't it?
Yeah, and look, I mean, the purpose for writing the book is the left has so many different guides, playbooks, different things that, you know, they teach their candidates, right? There's a book called Run for Something. Hillary Clinton wrote the foreword to that, and it's teaching a lot of people on the left how to get involved and what to do. And if people want to learn more, they can go to runrightbook.com. But the idea was after 2024, you know, I kind of looked around. Joshua had approached me and said, hey, you know, you ever think about writing about the stories of 2024, some of the lessons that were learned? And, you know, I told him, I said, look, we actually do a candidate academy. You know, at Citizens Alliance, we put on these candidate academies all the time. And my right-hand man, Justin Grice, I mean, he runs, you know, pretty much the playbook. And so we have 18 steps that if you want to go from nothing to winning, right, in a political campaign, and we just kind of break it all down. We teach a lot of the lessons that we learned so you don't have to. But that's the point of the book, is to give people a guide to show you, not just on the door knocking front, right? A lot of people think this is just going to be, you know, the ground game. Of course, Rob, you know, I dive in on that. But the reality is what I'm trying to do is give people somewhere to turn so that they don't make the mistakes I made, whether you're thinking about running for office or whether you're thinking about helping a campaign, managing a campaign, or getting involved in the political process. There's a lot to learn. And I really dive in on some of the specifics. It's not abstract. It's not theoretical. It's giving you the specific lessons I've learned so that you don't have to have those same mistakes.
Yeah. As a matter of fact, it's going to be, I'm going to make a shameless plug here. It's going to be a great companion piece to my book that's going to come out. That's going to have a foreword written by Joshua Lysick in it. That's named What You Can Do About That. That answers the question of, well, what the heck can I do about this or that that I get all the time when I'm talking about politics and what we can do about different policies and those kind of things. So coming soon, folks. But you got to get this book because, you know, just before the live TV show, we have a little pre-show with our Spaces audience. And 3 of the 4 individuals that spoke, Cliff, were speaking about why isn't there a playbook written down for Republicans? Well, this is it, right?
Yeah, I mean, and you can also look at the Blueprint, which the book was written about how they really took over Colorado on the left and what the Democrats did with their strategy. And look, some people push back and say, Cliff, why would you put your strategy out there so that the Democrats can see it? Guys, the Democrats' entire playbook is out there, right? This is not about trying to hide. It's about giving conservatives, patriot, liberty-minded folks something that they can look at so that they can understand how the system works. And it's interesting, Rob, but I spent a lot of my time talking people out of running for office. That's another purpose of the book, is if you're not ready to win, then you should not be running. A lot of our friends in the Libertarian Party or Independents or Constitution Party, they get mad at me, but it's the truth, right? The reason I'm a Republican is because I believe in the values of limited government, but I believe in winning. And one of the things we talk about in the book is losers don't legislate. Say it one more time so your audience gets it. Losers don't legislate. And so my request to anybody out there is, if you want to run for office, if you want to win, and then you want to stay consistent and principled, that's what the book outlines for you.
Yeah, when we talk to prospective candidates, what is the biggest reason that you give them when you're trying to actually talk them out of running?
Money. Always money, especially at the federal level. You know, a lot of people think it costs, a couple $100,000 to win a congressional seat, and you'll be able to raise it from different individuals, donors and patriots out there. It's just not the case. The special interest, if you're a patriot, if you're somebody who wants to join the Freedom Caucus, you're actually going to go there and you're going to try to buck the system. You will have $5 to $10 million spent against you in negative television ads in the last 2 months. Guaranteed. I've seen the playbook run by the establishment time and time again, because they don't want more of those people up there that are going to question leadership. They want yes men. That's all they want. So money is the biggest challenge for grassroots candidates. And let me tell you this: when we do these candidate academies, I actually ask the crowd. I say, listen, the average Pennsylvania State House winning Republican raised and spent $150,000. This is a state house in Pennsylvania.
Yeah.
So they spent $150,000. And I say to them, Colonel, how are you going to raise $150,000?
That's right.
Now, the businessmen in the room, or the people that, maybe they're career military, they've got a great network of people, they might have the ability to call folks and to raise that. But the 21-year-old in the room is like, man, I only have 30 people's names in my phone. How am I going to raise $150,000? Well, hey, maybe you should wait, right? Maybe you need to give it a couple years. So money, and then, by the way, I'm not here to say that, fundraising is sexy and I liked it. It's just that's the challenge. I've tracked so many of these races. That is where patriots lose, because they underestimate how hard it is to raise the dollars to win.
Now, do you dedicate part of the book to how to raise money in the political environment?
Oh, yeah. I know a couple people that are buying it just for that chapter, because that has been something, you've obviously worked alongside me and seen some of the work that we're doing at Citizens Alliance as a mentor and as a friend. And it's, we're going to have to raise $20 million this year. When I tell that to people, they think, oh, wow, is the party giving you money? Is our candidates giving you money? Zero, right? These are relationships. I have to go out there. So part of the book talks through fundraising. I give certain script examples as a candidate, things you should say, things you shouldn't say, how you make the ask. I walk through it all.
Yeah, I think the fundraising piece is the most difficult, no matter who you are, because unless you're Elon Musk or somebody like that can write their own check, you have to learn how to go ask for money in this environment, in this culture. Look, as a guy that was military, and I think I've raised probably about $7 or $8 million now in the last 12 years myself through various means for politics purposes. And it's the hardest thing I've ever done. And I've been in a lot of hard places.
Yeah, and once again, a lot of people think that there's some great list, right? The Glengarry list of leads that you'll buy or you'll be handed, or they think somebody else is going to go, oh, I'm going to hire a fundraiser. Yeah. Look, I don't care what office you're running for, unless you're running for U.S. Senate and you hire a really good fundraiser. There's only 5 of them out there. Yeah. You have to go make the ask, right? And a lot of times people think that they're going to ask political donors to donate. No, you're asking friends. You want people that believe in you. They're the ones that are going to be motivated to give. And so that's why I tell candidates, the first thing you do is you export your phone contact list. You put it into an Excel sheet or a Google sheet, and you go through it. And you mark how much can this person give? And, oh, my uncle's not political. Was he a socialist? No. Then call him. Right? He's the guy. You got to go ask him for $3,500. So it's uncomfortable. The best candidates I find out there are people who have done sales, because they understand, hey, this is going to be a challenge, but I'm going to push through it. I've had, 3-star generals that are worse fundraisers than a guy that was hawking, energy drinks for Verve Energy because he just knows how to talk to people on the phone and he can close them. So it's, once again, I don't even like talking about it because it feels grimy, but the establishment has unlimited resources, and that's the biggest obstacle we have as a grassroots candidate. You have to put in the time and the work to raise the money so your message can reach the voters.
Yeah, absolutely right, man. I can understand the 3-star general not being that good at it because they're used to talking to people and having them partially already convinced that what they're saying is something that they're going to believe in.
Right.
I mean, it's just the way that culture is, and you gotta learn to be a salesman or a saleswoman. I like your analogy there. The sales pitch people are really the best people. And I'm glad you point out that you can't just go hire a fundraiser, because even if you hire a fundraiser, the good ones, they may have a good list, but you're still making the phone calls. You have to study the people you're calling, and you have to make that ask, even with the high dollar fundraiser. It just doesn't work that way if you're running for office as a candidate and everything. I think my average donation so far is about $37 over that $8 million is because we're not calling big money people. We're asking average Americans for it. Well, we got to take a break, Cliff. When we come back, we'll see and talk more about the fight. The fight is on, folks. The fight is on, and this book is incredibly important to get it if you want to understand how to win that fight. We'll be right back with Cliff Maloney, CEO of Citizens Alliance.
I just think you guys aren't paying attention to what's actually happening right now across the country and the experience of the average American, and also in elections that we have been having since 2024. Every prominent Democrat, save for Kamala Harris and from what we've heard from Joe Biden, has talked explicitly about mistakes that were made throughout the Biden years, talking about open border problems and how that wasn't addressed on time, media strategy problems, telling people, no, your wallet is fuller than you think it is, or we have a faster recovery than everyone else in the G7, so you should be thankful for that we prioritized cultural issues over economic issues, or that was people's perception of us. So I just don't see that as reality. And we could, tick through the evidence of this, that people today are worse off than they were under Joe Biden, that they feel it. That inflation report, bad, going up a percentage point over the course of the last month. The Michigan consumer
it's a temporary spike.
Maybe it is, but well, sure. But
let's say,
9%. But this is the thing: we already lost for that.
Yeah, you did.
And this is what happened on CNBC this morning, and why Joe Kernan was embarrassed, and Andrew Ustorgan jumped in to say, Pete's just giving you the facts on the ground. We lost, and we learned lessons from it. And saying that this is just temporary It's temporary because of a choice that the president made that he doesn't have the backing of the American people
to secure the
for.
people from nuclear weapons. And I would just
there was
note
no evidence that there was
food
nuclear
inflation.
weapons
Food inflation
on the
was
way.
flat. Medical care costs declined. Used
Haley,
car
if
prices
you want to say this is
declined.
good, okay. GDP Q4 revised down 2 days ago to 0.5%. The consumer sentiment index, lowest in history. They've been tracking it since the 1960s. We're winning elections everywhere. School board seats in Missouri, state Supreme Court seats in Wisconsin. You know what's going on. You pay attention to this just as much as I
pay attention.
Welcome back to the Rob Maness Show. We're live on Worldview Tube and our X Spaces simulcast, and it's Training Tuesday, and we're talking about Run Right, the new book out by Cliff Maloney of Citizens Alliance and Joshua Lysick, New York Times bestselling author, known for co-authoring Unhumans is one of the books that Joshua has co-authored along with Jack Posobiec. And Cliff, I have to show these clips because they're recent, and the Democrats are given their strategy. Jessica Tarloff there with Fox News on the Fives talking about what they're going to do. Well, we already lost on those things, folks. This is their message. We already lost on those things. We're going to do it right this time. But they never talk about the underlying policies, number one. But number two, our side doesn't do a really great job at countering their messaging because, and you kind of mentioned it in the first segment, of all the establishments doing is spending millions of dollars against good candidates. Do you talk about the structure like the NRCC, the National Republican Congressional Committee, and the NRSC, the National Republican Senatorial Committee, the committees that I call the incumbent protection racket? Do you talk about those structures in the book a little bit, how to navigate them, what to expect, and those kind of things?
Yeah, I go into it a little bit, but this is why when I said earlier, people shouldn't run for Congress if they're not prepared or they don't have the funding, because the NRCC and the SRCC, if you're running the Senate, those are the people I'm talking about that are going to spend the millions of dollars in negative ads because they're going to want a yes man. They're going to want somebody that they can control and that is not going to cause a problem and is going to vote and not speak out about certain things, even if it's, selling out the American people. Well, we had to do this because of that, right? So, yeah, I mean, navigating those is difficult. But, I'll tell everybody, look, the left operates in a way that we should be replicating, which is it's a bunch of 501c3s, 501c4s, different PACs, different organizations. It's all under the Arabella Advisors kind of umbrella. But you've got, look, the Three Kings protest, the No Kings protest. They just had No Kings 3. That's why I'm saying that. I was in Philadelphia. They were banging so loud in Center City. But the No Kings protest, you look at who funded that, right? It's all of these 501c3 and 501c4 organizations. They're full-time people, Colonel. They are permanent infrastructure. That is where we need to get. A lot of people think, the party isn't doing it correctly at the state level. The national party, the county parties, the candidates don't want to pay people to not do. Guys, that's not what the left does. The left runs their campaigns very similar to how we do in terms of, they're doing the basics. They've got cheaper TV buys. They're sending the mailers. Everything's about them. Yeah. What the outside groups need to do is to come in. We need to fundraise. We need 20 turning point actions. We need 20 Citizens Alliance organizations because that's what the left has. So that would be my push to everybody to stop relying on the party and really try to focus on raising funds and building permanent infrastructure through 501c4s. We should never go home. In these swing congressional districts, Colonel, the Democrats do not leave. They've got 30 people in the top 30 congressional districts across the country that never go home. That's what we need to be doing.
Yeah, I live in a city that's a Republican-run city right now, Gulfport, Mississippi, but the Democrats brought a huge infrastructure in. I don't know exactly when they did it, but it's big enough to where they stay, Cliff, and they brought Stacey Abrams in with big money to try to take the mayor's seat last June and came within 800 votes of doing it. And it's the largest city on the coast in Mississippi. And they know that if they take that, that other big cities that they don't already control in the state will fall. So they're focusing on this, and they're still here. I know I've noticed that because I go out and I look for them. And I see them in council meetings. I see them on TV. I see them writing op-eds. I see them in action all over the place. And you're exactly right. There's a permanent infrastructure there that they keep. And I'm glad you said that. That's one of my goals. We started a C4 with Gator Pack Direct Incorporated last year. One of my goals is to build that up to be exactly what you said. One of the organizations that plugs in to this system so that we can help fund these types of things down here where we're at, and nationwide if we can ever raise that much money. So you're exactly right on that. So when folks are looking at the book, you use the blueprint. No pun intended. You use the blueprint where your winning blueprint for the PA Chase in 2024. How do you teach folks through that lens about winning with your approach of door knocking? How much does it cost? Those types of
information. Yeah, one of the big lessons in the book is what we call 3% plus one. So this is part of confrontational politics. It's a lesson that we teach as well. But what it does, you take the entire universe, and when you have let's say a state like Pennsylvania, roughly 12% of the entire population is always going to vote for the Republican, no matter who it is. Same thing for the Democrat, right? I'm obviously using, I'm don't take this for granted, but I'm saying, or the specifics of it. But let's say roughly that's the case in a statewide race. There's about 6% that's left. This is not of voters, by the way. This is of the entire universe. People that are eligible to vote, people that are not eligible, people that are registered versus not registered, but every citizen in Pennsylvania. If you have 6% that are up for grabs, the rule is typically you need to win 3% of those persuadables plus one vote, and then you've got the majority. What I talk about in the book is the math has not changed in terms of the results. The math has changed on where you should put your time and energy. Because it used to be the Karl Rove strategy of, okay, if we're going to get to that 6%, we need half of them. We got to swing, get these persuadable voters. We need the perfect message. Messaging is important, yes. But if you're spending all your time on messaging or thinking about that 3% plus one, you're missing the boat because the rule changes change the strategy that you need to win. So instead of focusing on those persuadables, you have so much time to get your people to vote that you want to drive up the amount of people that are diehard Republicans that usually don't vote, right? That's why we did the PA Chase. That's why there's 900,000 Republicans in Pennsylvania that are projected not to vote in 2026. That's what I'm doing right now, right? Is I'm talking to those people. We're targeting those people at the door. I'm not persuading moderate Democrats. I'm not going to independents and hoping that they'll come our way because of the Maha movement and that coalition. I hope they do, but I'm spending my resources on the guy that's got a Trump sign in his yard. He's got a Trump hat on when he answers the door, and he hasn't voted in the last 4 elections. That's what I outline in the book, is how once this became an election season, rather than election day or week or month, we have 2 months of voting in Pennsylvania. You have to target those people that are not likely to vote, but make them higher propensity to vote. They're going to vote for your candidates, and that's where you put all your money. That's where you put all your effort.
900,000? I heard you correctly?
That is the target. That's right. We're going to change it, but currently it's 900,000 Republicans in PA, registered Republicans, that are projected not to vote.
So in the book, do you talk about the challenges that we hear every day in social media and even on some conservative news outlets about, oh, things are terrible, the president's doing this or that, that's not what we voted for? I hear it every day. It's almost ad nauseum, and I never hear about, hey, look at this win. Look what's going on here or there. With the taxes coming down. Tax on Social Security and no tax on tips. All of those things, the wins, which are the vast majority, I don't hear about that. Do you talk about how candidates and teams at the door deal with that type of dichotomy and issues and viewpoints?
What's interesting, a lot of the races that we do are more local, right? We do a lot of
Mhm.
state house, a lot of state senate. And I always tell people, in the book, I do talk a lot about if you're running for state house, I don't want to hear you campaigning on the campaign trail about ending the Federal Reserve, right? You've got to kind of have some sort of jurisdiction or connection to something. But most of the stuff when you're at the door, even if it's for a federal race, like Scott Perry, Congressman, Central Pennsylvania, we're on the ground right now in his district. But the conversations at the door are not about federal politics, right? A lot of times it's about the price of gas.
Yeah.
It's about, struggling to find a job, right? What's the market like? It's the things that they care about. And this is what I tell a lot of the political class that love to pontificate. I'm a blue collar kid from the Philly suburbs. Like, I love when I get in a room with these people. I'm all for people having wealth, but these folks that have never really had to worry about where that next meal is going to come from,
Mhm.
right? Because when you go to the door, people are trying to get their kids to baseball practice. They're trying to pay their mortgage, right? They are going to get hit with some of those tax reductions, but I think it's our job, and we probably have done a poor job at doing this, but that's the task of these candidates, is to go out, pitch themselves, to be able to respond to how things are doing nationally, but to provide real world simple solutions to people. One of the things in the book that I dive in on is the Leesburg grid. Maybe we want to hit it after the break, but
Yeah.
I tell people that the messaging part, it's almost like robotic, but if you do it like the establishment does, you can win.
Yeah, I do want to talk about that after the break. And plus, we've got a hand up in the audience, so I want to take a question from the live audience too, because this is critically important because it's winnable. No matter what, that's one of the things that I'm excited about the book, Cliff, is that it teaches our side. It gives us the tools to know how to win, regardless of the noise that's going on, because you're getting right down to the ground level of going after the voter, like you said, with the red MAGA hat on, but he hadn't voted in the last 4 elections. But he will vote if you give him something to go vote for. We'll be right back with Cliff Maloney, author of the new book, Run Right. It's a playbook to win elections.
News is moving faster than ever, and so are we. Worldview Tube brings you 24/7 live stream coverage, and now, real-time alerts when it matters most. Once you have the Worldview Tube app installed, exit the app and navigate your way to Settings. In Settings, locate the tab labeled Notifications. Select the Notifications tab. Scroll down until you locate the Worldview Tube app icon. Select the tab, and here you can turn on and customize your notification experience for the Worldview Tube app. News doesn't wait, and neither should you. Turn on push notifications to stay informed. Every headline as it happens.
Now, look, I talk about this in the book, but the entire strategy has changed. Not because voting habits have changed specifically, but because the rules have changed, Jack. It used to be that you wanted that perfect Karl Rove message going into the November morning of the election because everybody voted on election day. Right now, we don't have election weekend. We don't have election week. We don't even have election month. In Pennsylvania, we have election season. In Arizona, in Nevada, in New Hampshire, like all these states, you're voting for a long period of time. And so that's why the ground game now has such a needed impact, because it's not about persuading these voters that are unsure. It's about going to the 900,000 Republicans in Pennsylvania that are not likely to vote this year and spending all of our time getting them a mail-in ballot, which will give them a much better shot at voting. That's why the ground game now matters so much more. Yes, you have to be on TV. You've got to be on radio. You've got to be on digital. You got to do mail. You got to send the text, but you got to match them when it comes to the door-to-door ground game because of the rule change. That's what Charlie identified. That's what we're doing at Citizens Alliance, and we need to continue to focus on the ground.
And we need to grow that so that we have a whole architecture of organizations that are following the same methodology and on message. My guest today is that man, Cliff Maloney, the CEO of Citizens Alliance, the organizer of the Pennsylvania Chase that I am convinced is what put Donald Trump over the top in 2024. I will stand on that until my last breath. And I am so grateful for that, Cliff. You were talking about the Leesburg grid before we went to the break. What is that, and how does it work?
Yeah, so the Leesburg grid is a method that is used pretty much by everyone that is successful in politics. Hakeem Jeffries, Chuck Schumer, Mike Johnson, John Thune. They do this weekly, if not daily, which is when you're running for office, you want to get together with some of your closest staff members, your spouse, anybody that's trusted, and you want to have a couple-hour session where you sit in a room and you put Post-it notes on all four walls, right? You have 4 different walls, 4 quadrants. And what the Leesburg grid is, you're going to write out everything that's political and personal. First quadrant is when a voter walks into the voting booth, what do you want them to think when they see your name, right? And you're going to list off all the personal and political stuff. Personal stuff might be you're a great dad, you're a husband, political stuff would be, different issue areas that you think you lead on, 100% pro-life, 100% pro-gun, this, and this. But that first quadrant is what do you, as the candidate, want people to think of you? The second quadrant is what do you want people to think of your opponent when they get into the voting booth and see their name? So that's what you want people to think of your opponent when they walk in. Okay, those are what we call the golden boxes. Those are the boxes you want to stay in. The bottom two, bottom left, is going to be what does your opponent want people to think of themselves? And what does your opponent want people to think of you, right? Now, this is where you go to a dark place, right? You got to be in a trusted circle because we got to know about the DUI. We got to know about the, incident in high school. We got to know about, any affairs in the past or other, like, if these things are out there, and you can do opposition research on yourself, by the way, for $5,000, you can learn what everybody else is going to learn from these researchers and oppo companies. But what you do is you take all 4 of those quadrants, and in each of them, you have to narrow it down to 3 things in each quadrant. You cannot have more than 3. In an ideal world, you have 1, right? That race becomes a referendum. It's like, hey, my opponent's negative on this is the entire reason why I'm running. I'm just going to talk about this all day. But you narrow them all down to 3, and I'll wrap my little Leesburg session here by saying you never go below the middle line, meaning you don't ever go into quadrant 3 or 4. If you're talking about quadrants 3 or 4, which is what your opponent wants people to think of them or of you, you're losing. You must stay in quadrant 1 and 2, stay on message, and you want voters to hear you talking about those 3 things every single time you're at a public speaking event, any of your ads, your mail. That's the focus. Your literature, those 3 things, that becomes your message. It's what the establishment does because it works. It's repetition, keep it simple, stupid.
Yeah, so that begs the question, and I have to ask it, is so your opponent attacks you from quadrant 3, from information down in the quadrant that's negative on you. What do you do?
So one of my favorite responses is actually from Rand Paul. He was getting, smacked with negative ads from the Democrats. And his response was, such and such is lying about Rand Paul's record because ... So don't address the exact negative attack, but you can say, listen, this person's lying because they don't want you to know blank, right? And you're back in your quadrants. They don't want you to know that they voted for abortion, right? They don't want you to know that they voted to take away your gun rights, right? We're back in quadrant 2 talking about them. So we address the negative by just saying that they're lying, but we're not doubling down on it. We're not saying, hey, Bob said that I was, not good on taxes, but he's lying. No. Bob's a liar, and he's lying to you because he doesn't want you to know blank. Now we're talking back in our quadrant.
Yeah, the issue is what you want to say. Always what you want to say in your message. All right, let's take a question from the live audience real quick. Go ahead, Shell.
We have Wib, sir.
Thank you, Shell. Thank you, Colonel. Thank you, Mr. Maloney. I might get a little esoteric here, and I am honestly going to buy this book because running is something that I have been tossing around. My current Rhino state rep he used to be a Democrat, and he's running unopposed again this year. Uh, However, one of the fallbacks, you spoke about a permanent infrastructure with like NGOs and so forth. Well, John Conrad had a great post today about the permanent infrastructure of the leadership staff. And one of the things that I thought of were the state house parliamentarians. For example, Texas currently, the parliamentarian in a Republican controlled House uses an Obama parliamentarian. And just because there's no other parliamentarians to use. So I'm wondering if your book can also be leveraged for staffers and so forth to obtain those kind of positions so that there can be a permanent infrastructure in the staffing sense.
Yeah, it's a great question. Colonel, can I dive in?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah,
Go
so
for it.
look, I don't mean this to be a pessimist to the entire audience here. There are about 16 different levels of battles that we need to fight, right? And we can talk about Virginia if you want, what happened with the redistricting and why I didn't participate. But the problem that you identified is a major problem, right? Not just with parliamentarians, but with staff, with just the people that run the building are the people that run the swamp, right? And their job is to keep things status quo. Like that's what they want because nobody likes change, right? Nothing moves in politics unless it's pushed. And so those people, their whole objective is to just, tamper everything down. Let's just pass that CR. Let's just keep things going. Nobody gets hurt. The lobbyists are happy. There's no cut in spending. Staffing, though, is one of those things. I mean, even when I ran Young Americans for Liberty or groups like Leadership Institute or Turning Point that work with young people, they're trying to fix that staffing problem. But the book is designed to really focus on folks that want to run for political office and that want to be effective and they want to understand how it works. But I will agree with you. So I'm not saying it's not for them, but I would agree with you that this is a major problem and something that, once you take over a legislative body, it becomes a lot easier. And I think this is the first step. If we can win these races, that's the first step. But then you have to get down the staffing rabbit hole. You have to get down the rabbit hole of understanding, some of the election reforms that we need when it comes to finance. There's a lot of little things. The book is about winning. And then from there, we're going to have opportunities to legislate, to handle staff, et cetera.
Yeah, I mean, I even ran on a platform plank of term limits for staffers on committees and for each elected member at the federal level when I was running for U.S. Senate, because that's where a lot of the power holds. But that would be a whole separate book, Cliff. We'll have to get together with some smart guy like Lysick or something, and maybe we can write a book about that.
Love it.
But it's very important. You're right about that. So you mentioned Virginia. I wasn't going to ask you why you didn't get involved. What I wanted to ask you about the Virginia thing is, look, I was asked just before election day what I thought, and I said, well, it's going to be very close because I had been seeing what I thought were some very positives from activist levels on our side that I had been observing all year, really. And I knew it was going to be very close. And then when I saw the outcome, I'm like, man, that was a winnable race. What I don't know if you've seen, take a look at what went on and anything, give any feedback on that, positive or negative. I think the activists were really, really ramped up, but something went awry somewhere.
Yeah, I mean, listen, I think you have the typical case. We're going to have to see all the reports on the spending before I can give, a definitive answer. But my guess is it'll show this. It's going to show that Democrats spent money on every single avenue possible. It's going to show that Republicans spent money on every single avenue possible except paid canvassers, right? Of course, there was great grassroots volunteer support. But let me give you an example from 2024, right? When we launched the PHAs, I said, look, we're going to hire over 100 people full-time, 6 days a week, 10 Airbnbs across PA. A lot of people reached out and said, hey, I don't want to do that, but I do want to volunteer. So we had a really good test case because we hired some staff that would manage the volunteers. So we have the paid staff and the volunteers. And if you look at that, out of the thousands and thousands of people that came forward that they wanted to volunteer versus the 125 people we had that were paid, the 125 paid door knockers. And once again, I love the volunteers. It's not a shot at them. This is the Democrats understanding what actually is impactful and how to get ROI. The paid canvassers knocked on 480,000. The volunteers knocked on 30,000. That's how we ended up knocking 510,000 doors. So just think about that when you're putting it in context of like, you know, was the grassroots activate? Even if you have the best volunteers in the world, having that paid staff that are professionals, that are trained, that are knocking 6 days a week, 80 to 100 doors a day, it's a game changer. And so, am I frustrated about Virginia? Yeah. Look at the $100 million they spent for Cornyn against Patriot Ken Paxton. We could have used 5 to 10 of that, and we would have won in Virginia. But the consultant class needs a shakeup, and I don't know how that happens. I think we just got to keep pushing. We got to keep exposing, but there has to be a realignment. 2024 started that, but we got to really figure out things as we head into midterms.
Yeah, and it's not that I don't want political consultants to make a living, but we want them to make a living doing the right things, you know. Yeah, like you mentioned before at the beginning of the show, you still got to do text messaging, you still got to do TV, you still got to do radio and print and all that. But canvassing at the door, you have to be doing that. That's what they're doing. Go read the book, The Blueprint, and you'll see what they did. Somebody mailed me that a couple of years ago because I'd never read it before. And the Democrats proudly put in that book how they did turn Colorado from red to blue. Well, Cliff, we got to take another break. When we come back, we got one more question in the audience, but I want to talk about costs for canvassers at the statewide level, what it might look like at a state house or a state senate level, and those kind of things, so we give people an understanding of what the book talks about from that perspective. We'll be right back with Cliff Maloney, author of the new book, Run Right. It's a playbook, folks, for winning by us.
Hello, I'm Brandon House. Would you like to gain access to over 20 years of my radio shows, TV shows, my books? I've written 15 books, and most of those books are ebooks now. And we have conference DVDs, conferences where we filmed our conferences at the Ozarks, literally starting 20 years ago. It's all available in our archived vault. All you have to do is go to worldviewtube.com/vault, worldviewtube.com/vault, and for a reasonable monthly fee, you gain access to over 20 years of Christian worldview programming, news, information, books, documentaries, and a powerful search engine. And folks, it's a great way not only to educate yourself, equip yourself, but it's a big way that you can help fund our continuation as a broadcast network. Please check it out. worldviewtube.com/vault, worldviewtube.com/vault, and help us continue pushing out a Christian worldview.
Take some time and I'll make the signature absolutely perfect. So it looks very good. So far, so good. Okay, so that's a big deal. Very proud of it. And I don't know how it can be challenged. You'll probably challenge it. You may find a rogue judge. You get a lot of rogue judges. Very bad people, very bad judges. But that's the only way that can be changed. And hopefully we'll win an appeal if it is. But I don't see how anybody can challenge it. I don't see how they can challenge it.
Welcome back to the Rob Maness Show. That was President Donald J. Trump signing the executive order limiting mail-in ballots, is what that clip was intended to show there. And that's important to this discussion today because the Democrat strategy around mail-in ballots has been quite successful quite often. But we were able to turn that around and have been able to do that in several locations. A key one was Pennsylvania in 2024, using strategies in this new book we're talking about today with one of the authors, Cliff Maloney, CEO of Citizens Alliance, and that is through a aggressive door knocking campaign chasing those ballots. And Cliff, welcome back. We've got a question in the audience. I want to take that real quick before we dive into this and talk about the effect less mail-in ballots might have on the strategy we're talking about. Go ahead, Shell, with that question.
We have Liz, sir.
Good afternoon, Colonel, Mr. Mahoney. Question for you is, I get 50 million texts from WinRed a day, and I want to know what your opinion is. Do you think that you should send donations directly to the candidate's campaign? Go through that process with these text messages? Because I want them to get the full effect of my money.
Yeah,
and
great
I wanted
question.
to go to that candidate.
Yeah, great question. I mean, I'll tell you this, I probably have to respond with stop or unsubscribe 17 times an hour on my phone because I am an ideologue. I'm not in this for the money. I do give a lot of my money to candidates, which is a bad habit. I need to stop doing that because then, you know, every candidate that I'm supporting or you know, that I'm even just verbally supporting is expecting money now. Look, I always tell people this in the political world, if people are doing it and they're doing it often, it's probably because it's working, right? There's a reason when I send out my mailers, right? I don't send a one-page PDF, which is probably something, you know, as a 34-year-old dude, I'd probably read a one-page PDF and, okay, give me the basics, little executive summary. Here's what I'm working on. Do you want to support us? Do you want to support the org? Do you want to support this campaign? They don't do well. You got to send 4, 6, or 8-page letters. I'm not saying that I like doing that, but guess what? When I send a 6-page letter, we get people to send money back and sponsor our ballot chasers. So it's the same thing with the texting. Now, you asked about giving directly to the campaign. It depends on who the candidate is, and it depends on who the consultant is, and it depends on what their plan is. I do not recommend giving money to parties in general because typically I find that, you know, the candidate, if it's between the candidate and the party, I would give to the candidate. That's typically where I would put my resources because they can spend it directly on themselves and, you know, they can kind of craft their message. But once again, I'll say, if everybody's doing it, it's probably because it's working. And so all of the text messages, all of the, you know, letters that go out, all the emails that you get, it's because there's an ROI that's positive still. I would probably project or predict that the texting will be severely cut down by the cell phone carriers over the next 2 to 4 years. You're already seeing it with certain buzzwords. They're not letting text go out. But while it's available, if it works, the political class will use it.
Yeah, I've noticed a reduction in texting this time, this election cycle, for the federal election cycle myself. So it's interesting because they put a lot of restrictions on what approvals you have to get and how you have to sign up now and those kind of things. But folks, I agree with you, Cliff. You know, direct to the candidate if you know think they're doing well with the money, but there are also other avenues to help. You know, when in 2024 we did a lot of fundraising through MyPAC, and our largest donation beyond directly to the president was to your operation and Charlie Kirk's operation for that year, because what you were doing was working. And that gets me to what I wanted to ask you about and see if it's in the book. You know, the PA chase was designed around chasing mail-in ballots because so many were left on the table by Republicans in 2020, I believe. If I may have that year wrong, but I think it was the 2020 cycle that we had initially talked about. But with the president reducing mail-in ballots, does that affect the strategy, the door knocking part of the strategy that you talk about in the book that you outline?
Well, let me say the one sentence that got me in a lot of trouble with the New York Times. I hate mail-in ballots. I say that a lot of my speeches, and so somebody on the left tried to kind of, Trump's mail-in ballot guy says he hates mail-in ballots. It's the truth, right? I do, but what I hate more is losing. And so what we do at Citizens Alliance, the tagline of "Doors Win Wars" is not because we're always chasing ballots. If we're able to get rid of mail-in voting, Citizens Alliance would continue on knocking doors, but it's what we would be doing at the door that would be different. So instead of chasing ballots, we go back to doing what we used to do pre-COVID. We'd advocate at the door. We'd persuade at the door. We'd get out the vote, because those rules would make that the best use of our time when we're out canvassing. Right now, based on the current rules, the best use of our time is to chase requests, so meaning mail-in ballot request forms that we get them to fill out, and then obviously chase the ballots once they go out September or October. So I hope, and I really want to see Save America Act pass. I'd love to ban mail-in voting. I'd love to have a single day of voting, hand count, paper ballots. But that's a pipe dream, and we can work towards it. But while we have the current rules, I am going to do what we know how to do best to win under these conditions.
Yeah, and that gets me to the big question that I have left is, if somebody's wanting to run for a state house Senate seat at the state level, give folks a general idea of what the ground game under this concept in the book is going to cost.
Yeah, well, one, if you're thinking about running for state office and you're a patriot, get a hold of me, cliffmaloney.com or doorswinwars.com. But shoot me a note. Let's talk strategy and what you're planning on doing. I can get you teed up with some good people that'll actually take care of you and run a good campaign for you. The reality is, if we can get doors, anywhere from $4 to $6 a door, it's typically a pretty good price. But that includes everything, right? That includes the housing, that includes paying the door knocker, that includes gas cards, some Gatorade and snacks, all the data, all the literature, the actual app to knock with, whether you're using i360, Campaign Sidekick, Superfeed, Advantage, whatever it is. Numenar, there's a lot of different apps, and they all work. It's just figuring out which is best for that campaign. But I would say somewhere between $4 to $6. But it also depends on, once again, if you're running for state house, what does your volunteer force look like? If you got 12 sons and daughters that can go out knocking 5 days a week, it's a little different than if you're new to the area, you don't have a really big network built up. Can you activate your church? Can you activate your coworkers? But we walk through budgets, especially at the state level, in the book. But understand this too. In California, a state house seat might cost you $5 million. In New Hampshire, a state house seat is going to cost you $10. Legitimately, like that's the difference between some of the state houses and the political power that people want access to. It varies greatly. So when I say state house, we give some specifics, but we're kind of in the middle of the road in a state like PA, where $150,000 is what the average Republican raises to win.
Yeah. So when we're activating this type of team, what do you teach the candidates through the book? What do you have in there for candidates on how to operate with this team as a candidate? Is it any different than they would normally operate? I mean, I've had ground game teams at the statewide level all the way down to the state house district level.
Right.
As a candidate, what do you teach folks as candidates on how to operate?
Well, we talk about it in the book, but one thing that we have a term for is something called candidate-itis, which is when a candidate files to run for office, their IQ points drop 50. And people think I'm kidding, but no, I mean, it's just
I've experienced
every single thing that happens, you think you need to respond. I mean, Morton Blackwell has a great principle in his list of principles, which is don't kick every barking dog. And it's very tough for me with candidates because people think, oh, well, this guy said this on Facebook. Listen, 4 voters out of the 80,000 that are going to vote in this primary saw that comment. And they're already not supporting you because they're friends with the guy who you're running against. So, no, you don't want to amplify their comments. You don't want to dignify. You don't want to give it legs when you don't have to.
Right.
So, that would be the first thing. The second thing would be, don't reinvent the wheel, right? If my organization or other people around you have run ground games before, you don't have to learn how to design literature, right? You can hire somebody to do that. You don't have to learn how to cut a walkbook, which is to assign a door knocker their list of houses and which voters they're going to be targeting that day. So lean on other people around you, and really spend all your time fundraising. I mean, that's going to continuously be what I get back to is 95% of your time running for office. This is from state house all the way up to president. You are on the phone and you are raising money. Because if you're not, your opponent is. And if your opponent's raising twice as much money as you, good luck winning.
Absolutely. And you brought it back to fundraising. I got one more question say you've got candidates and they're going to primary a sitting Republican incumbent because they're bad. They're not America first or Texas first or whatever. They're going to primary them. What do you talked about in the book about how to raise money in that environment?
Yeah, I mean, you're looking for a very, very specific type of donor. Okay, I always put donors in different buckets. The first bucket is Team Red, right? They're not really that into the policies or principles, but they know that Democrats are bad. They want to crush the commies. So they're always going to support the Republican, right? That's how that works. Yeah. The second bucket is the ideological donor, where they know what a rhino is, right? They don't like rhinos. And finding those individuals can be tough. But what you should do is find a candidate that is your type of style. And if you can legally, look up who their supporters are, right? Figure who are people that are already giving to some of these Republicans that have a spine, and then present yourself as an actual conservative, an actual liberty lover to those individuals. That's my advice to raise money.
How to Win, folks. Run Right is the new book from Cliff Maloney and Joshua Lysick. Cliff, tell them where to find the book. We've put it in our X Spaces comments, so you can go there and find it. But where can they find you and find the book real quick before I let you go? Thank you.
Runrightbook.com, and on X, I'm at Maloney. I appreciate you, Colonel.
Thanks, brother. We appreciate it. Keep up the fight, man. Stay in there. And you need to join him, folks. Go get that book, because I'm telling you, I've known this man a long time. He knows how to win, and that's what we've got to do. Tomorrow's Whistleblower Wednesday. Jake Novak is back, and I'm not even going to tell you what the topic's going to be. It'll be a surprise. I'll see you in the after show here on the Rob Maness Show.